So a while ago, a friend of mine suggested that I do a video covering the books that I DNF'd and why. And I thought that was a really, really good idea, and while I would have loved to do it the month that she suggested it, I didn't have any of my books with me. I didn't bring any of the books that I DNF'd to my apartment, and so now that I'm home, I decided I would do a video. I only have 4 books that I DNF'd, and trust me, I have DNF'd more books than 4. It's not that I didn't necessarily dislike them either, it's just that I either wasn't in the mood to finish it or I just didn't care anymore. But yeah, I'm going to share with you guys 4 books that I DNF'd in the past couple years, and the real difference between these books and the other books that I DNF'd is these books actually like stuck with me for the most part. Are there books that I'm kind of disappointed in myself that I DNF'd, but they're also books that I probably won't pick up again. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but yeah. So we're just gonna get into it. The first book that I DNF'd is Sarah's Key, Tatiana de Rosnay. If you don't know what this story is about, it's told from 2 points of view. One is a 10-year-old Jewish girl in Nazi Germany, and the other is of like a modern writer, I think in like 2012, who is researching this little girl's past, this little girl's story. It takes place in France, and it is, honestly, it's an amazing story, but there are actually 3 reasons why I DNF'd this book. I did actually really enjoy this book, but I obviously DNF'd it for a reason. Reason number 1 is that this book was so out of my reading level when I picked it up. I picked this book up in 8th grade, right after we finished Anne Frank's Diary in my ELA class. And, you know, I just really wanted to read more stories about Nazi Germany, and this is a great story to read, but it is considered an adult book, and this was the beginning of my reading career. I'd really only read Percy Jackson and The Mortal Instruments at this point, so I never really got in depth with my stories, and you know, even Anne Frank's Diary was hard for me to read. So going to this and being introduced to all of these French words and these adult concepts, you know, it was kind of confusing. Another reason why I didn't finish this book is because this was also during the time period where I got really bad anxiety if I didn't know how the story was going to finish. And so I read like the last 2 chapters, and I realized that I officially knew how the story ended. So it wasn't important for me to read it anymore. And also, the last reason is because I actually so I read half of this book, and I ended right when we stopped receiving the little girl's points of view. I remember being so invested in her story, and, you know, I really loved reading it from her perspective and, you know, getting that, you know, in-depth concept behind her story, and it stopped. And it's not, you know, nothing like happens. We still receive the rest of her story, but we receive it through research and articles, and it just kind of didn't fit with me, the fact that I stopped receiving the young girl's story. So those were the main reasons why I DNF'd this book. Out of all of these books, if I had to pick up another one, it would probably be this one. But yeah. The next book that I DNF'd is Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. If you don't know what this story is about, it was a pretty big deal when it first came out. This is a sequel or the follow-up novel to Kill a Mockingbird. So it takes place with the same family in the same Alabama city, and basically Jean Louise she's grown up, she's 26, and she's back home and visiting her father Atticus, and it's set in this, you know, civil rights movement / political strife, and it was a very good idea. The main reason why, I think that there were a lot of reasons why I DNF'd this book, and I think the one, it just didn't really, to me, it didn't necessarily amount to Kill a Mockingbird's magnificence. To Kill a Mockingbird is one of my favorite classics, and I really I think I had built up so much for this book, and I was just not as moved and not as invested in it as I was Harper Lee's previous book. I think another reason why is I didn't necessarily like a lot of the like minor main characters. I'm one of those people, if I don't, like I didn't hate them, but I also didn't love them. And so I was just in like this constant like neutral zone of like, I hate you, but I like you, and I don't know what to do with you. And I think that, you know, that was really frustrating me. And also, Jean Lewis isn't necessarily like her bubbly, like innocent self anymore. And, you know, obviously she's grown up. She's what, like 16 years older? We are so not the same as we were when we're 10 years old. And while I understand that, I think I was disappointed because I think I still wanted that like childhood innocence in this story, and I really wasn't receiving any. And I think that is the main reason. Like, I think that's what disappointed me, is that I didn't get to see this story from a child's point of view. I had to see it from like someone my age's point of view, and I didn't want that. The next book of these 4 that I DNF'd is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. If you don't know what this story is about, it's the Wicked Witch of the West story, basically. It's, you know, her from baby to how she got to be the Wicked Witch. Wicked, the Broadway musical, is based off of this book. It does not follow this book, like, at all. I was very disappointed. I did enjoy this book, but I read this book. The reason why I picked up this book was for school, actually. We had to, in my senior year, we had to read like a classic, like every month or something like that. And so like this was one of the classics that I chose. And by the time that I finished the journal entries, I finished a review on it, you know, and I did all of this stuff for it, I was just kind of done. I didn't necessarily want to invest myself in this book anymore. And while I have heard that so many people like this book, and I do believe that the message in this book is great. It has a lot of good messages. I just think that it wasn't what I expected. And while I did enjoy a lot of aspects of this book, I think that there were still aspects that I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of. And I think that, you know, I was also kind of like stuck in the musical world instead of this world. And I was just so, like, I was constantly comparing, and I was just getting, ugh. And the last book that I'm going to share with you guys that I DNF'd is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This book was actually so good. So good. And I read it in, what, like 11th grade for my English class, my World Lit. If you don't know what this book is about, it takes place in Africa, and it's told, you know, it's the story of this African tribe. We start to understand their culture and their religion, and, you know, it's this beautiful, beautiful setting and civilization, and it's also an abusive civilization, and you just really start to fall in love with these characters. And I loved this book up until part 3. I think I have like 50 pages at max to go to finish this story, and I just don't want to. I refuse to read past part 3. And while it is hinted at the back, so I don't really feel like it's a spoiler alert, but if you don't want to know anything, stop listening. So in the last part, that's when the European missionaries come to this tribe, and they start to share their Christianity upon this tribe, and they start to, you know, they're forcing their religion on these people. And that was the reason why I stopped reading this book. I have a huge problem with oppressive people. Does that make sense? While I understand that it happens in history and it happens even today, it's something that just really, really, really frustrates me. And I know, like, I think I experience it so much in life that I just can't read about it. I don't want to read about it. I like my stories to have decently happy endings, and this didn't go where I wanted it to go. I had fallen so in love with this culture and these people's ways of thinking, and then to have, you know, the basic white bitch come in and ruin everything. You know, it just really, really hurt my heart and my stomach got knots and I wanted to throw up. And I think that another thing that bothered me so much is, yes, it happens, and it happens in history, but you know, in this book, there's kind of like this sense of it's not necessarily okay. But I think in my world lit class, like the overall, like there was this tone of neutralism, and no one was really bothered by the fact that these Christians had come in and ruined these people's ways of life. And I think that hurt. And so, yeah, that was why I stopped reading this. Besides that, it was a phenomenal book. I loved analyzing it and getting to know these characters. But yeah, those are the 4 books that have impacted me, even though I've DNF'd them, or at least have stuck with me. The fact that I've DNF'd them has stuck with me forever. But yeah, that's it. If you guys want to see another one of these videos, I would gladly share more of my not impactful DNFs. But for now, that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe. That's it. Thank you guys. See ya.